Hi, hello. I hope you're well. So, jumping in, we did a live here recently about mental disorders in paganism and magic at large. And I wanted to just talk a little more seriously about depression in juxtaposition with your own personal craft. So I'm going to try to keep this semi-organized, but you know how I am. So, first and foremost, I think it's important to realize that depression is different from sadness. Totally different. And it is chronic. It doesn't really go away. You just kind of manage it. So there's that. To start out on a positive note. And since it is sort of almost just an outlook on life in a lot of ways for a lot of us, I think it can be hard to find other ways to look at life. It can be hard to get around it because it becomes so infused into your fiber of being, where depression is who you are, right? However, with that said, I think it's also important to realize when you are just experiencing sadness about something, about your life as it is now, maybe your career, your relationship, whatever. Maybe you just feel very existential sadness about just life in general, and be like, this is the earth, this is it, this is the world, this is it. This is it. I understand that feeling. I think it's also important to realize that there is seasonal affective disorder. Now, I know that usually people experience this in the darker parts of the year, so fall and winter. A lot of people come down with intense sadness that lasts for most, if not all, of the season. Some of us are affected in a reverse of that, for whatever reason. I am one of those people. Summer is fun and nice. Spring is fine. But they're not my favorite seasons. And yes, I enjoy the life and the nature of it and the warmth and being outside. Yeah, sure. But there's just something about it, and I think it's because as a culture, we put so much into summer and being outside with family and friends that I don't like that. I don't like being forced into something. And also, I think that the only reason culturally that we are so obsessed with summer, and that's when we have vacations, is because we are just, it's pounded into our brains since school that that's our only free time. So even as an adult, when really you have free time all year long, you get stuck on that. It's the same with weekends. You're an adult. You can have a good night any night of the week. But you limit yourself into just being happy and free on the weekends. That's stupid. That's insipid. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. But we do that to ourselves. And I think we do that to ourselves on such... That's kind of a macro example. But we do that on such a micro... in a micro way as well in our own personal lives. You have probably subconsciously or unconsciously dictated when you can be happy at certain times of the day and when you can't. If certain people are around or not around, you dictate how you feel. We dictate our feelings to ourselves all the time. We are not always victims of our emotions in terms of external influence. Does that make sense? Although we like to think that we are. We like to think that we are probably constantly excuse me, that our emotions are influenced by external stuff. And that's certainly true, but more often than not, we have ascribed external influences to mean certain emotional reactions out of us. And that's something that I think that takes a long time to dissect and look at, but is worth it. So pretty much all of us, if you're watching this video, have a book of shadows or a book of mirrors or a grimoire or whatever you want to call it. It's a journal. But yeah, use that journal to help you dissect external influences on your emotional state. So how do certain people make you feel? Write down all of the people in your life that come in, usually on a regular basis, I would say. Write them names down, and beside it, write how they make you feel. Obviously, you do not need to overthink this. Just how do they make you feel? And maybe you write down good stuff and bad stuff, or maybe just one immediately comes to you. That's one way to start realizing how not only that person affects you in your life and whether you need to try to mend a relationship with them or maybe bring them more into your life because they elicit good responses, or if you need to let them go. That can be the beginning of that, certainly. But then you need to ask yourself, are they bringing those emotions to me, or like we said, are they bringing those emotions out of me? And if they are, then you need to ask yourself why. So write their name, emotions that they make you feel, why? And you're immediately going to start getting answers. You just have to be open with yourself to hearing yourself. But I think if you've been on this path for a while, you've gotten a little used to celebrating and encouraging your inner voice to be a little louder. So immediately start writing down those answers and responses. And this could take you a while. This could take you days. It could take you weeks. It depends on how comfortable you are with your inner voice and giving it a voice. Now, back to depression itself. It is the great unmotivator, right? I think a lot of people see those of us who have been diagnosed with clinical depression as being lazy. And in textbook definition, sure. But it's not so much that we're lazy. It's just that everything can seem pointless. Or like it's already been done, which leads to pointlessness. You have a hard time deciding, like, what is, not only is my worth in the world, like, what do I have to give? Not only that, but for me at least, and with other people I've spoken to, you can kind of get bogged down in the world itself. It's like I spoke about earlier about existential problems. You may just be like, there is no point in this entire world. Like, we're just hamsters in a wheel all day, every day. And we've done it to ourselves. And I don't like it, and I don't want to be a part of it, but I'm forced to be a part of it. How do you get over those feelings? How do you get over those feelings? Again, I think these are things that you don't get over. You just manage them, or you push them down for a while until they come back. So really, I think what you need to look at here, like we said with the journaling and getting into emotional responses from people or things in your life, you need to get to a point where you need to listen to the language I'm using. Anyway, it's best if you get to a point where you start learning to prop your own self up. Because yes, I know a lot of people say that, like, depression, reach out to people, have a friend group, share what you're feeling. Great. But do you realize that when you do that, those people usually only want to hear about it once, maybe twice, and then they don't want to hear about it again, maybe for another year. There's really no one besides a licensed therapist, which can be great, that really wants to hear about your problems and in the amount of which they occur, being more than once or twice a year. So I think developing a positive relationship with yourself and with, your magical space can be one way of dealing with symptoms of depression. So what does that look like? So you may feel guilty or sad or some type of way about not being a witch like everyone else or any type of pagan, shaman or whatever. Because you see people online and they're always, oh, they have sabbats and esbits and, this, that, and the other that they're always celebrating, they're always doing. They cast spells every day, which is kind of crazy. And they do this, they do that, they're doing that, and they do this for people, and blah, 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 blah. So you start to kind of feel like crap. Because you're like, I don't do any of that. I don't do any of that. So having a space where you can come to, even if it's just like literally a corner, which I had for a long time, like for years. Just having a space to come to and just sit down and light a candle, even if it's for literally like 30 seconds, which we spoke about in our last video, that's going to help you a lot. You can come into the space and just play on your phone. You can do whatever you want. It's just allowing yourself to have a space to come into and just acknowledge, hey, I'm a magical person. This is who I am. This is what I like. Even if you're not doing magic in the magical space, spending time at a magical altar, at a magical space, giving yourself space for that and time for that is very important. And that's how things grow, whether you realize them or not. So, what I mean is, like, by doing that whenever you can, because the struggle to be regular is real, like very real, when you have depression. But doing that as much as you can is going to start kind of, I don't want to say stopping the gears in your brain from going so much. It's more like it's going to help start redirect your brain onto a different path. Like, picture your mind as a forest, right? Every day you're walking the same path in the forest over and over and over and over. You're not exploring. That can get very monotonous, very boring, very pointless. So, but you don't have the courage or the will to take another path. So you kind of have to trick yourself into taking another path. But it works. It works. Now I think, and this is maybe a little controversial, and I'm not a therapist, but sometimes reaching out to real people isn't as beneficial as reaching out to people on the internet, friends that you have solely through the internet, or just spirits. Sometimes that's really better. Because, like, the internet friends are not entwined into your everyday, machinations. So they're a great sounding board for you. Or just someone great to tap into and be like, oh, I feel the feelings of friendship and happiness, thank you. Without them actually being invested in your life. Which there are red flags there for that, but it's the world we live in. So that can be very helpful. And then, especially if you don't have any real life friends. And then spirits, gods, ancestors, fairies, blah, 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 blah. Just spending time with them can be also very healing and beneficial. Again, you can do this without actually speaking to them. You can just come in, light a candle. Why did I do that? Light a candle and be like, hey, and that's it. And just spend time in here with that energy, with those people. That can be healing and beneficial. But the bottom line is, yes, you do need to reach out to someone, whether they are real or not. That's just up to you. But, yeah, going depression alone does not really work. So, as I said, if you are going to be alone, at least have spirits or internet people with you. And don't forget to journal. Or vlog or whatever works for you, but don't forget to do that. Like, really. Now, that already sounds overwhelming and like a lot to someone who maybe is in the throes of it. But at some point, you will get to a point where you're like, I want to move forward, I want to change, I want to do something different. That will happen for you. And when it does, you've got to seize those little moments and not punish yourself for the long gaps in between those moments. You understand? Take advantage of the tiny moments. Anywho, this has been quite the ramble, as always. Slightly on topic, as always. But it is what it is. Thank you so much, and goodbye.